You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is David Smith, Senior Analyst for the Morgan Report, which you can find online at silver-investor.com. Welcome to the show, David.
Good to be back, Jim.
Metals right now kind of churning away, not really going up much, not going down much. How can you deal with that psychologically and investment-wise?
Well, I'd call it the precious metals grind. It's been going on for several months now. And if you think of what happens when you're grinding flour, it gets finer and finer. And this grinds down people's resistance, the ones that are bulls, and it enlivens the bears. But if you believe that the support we've seen building over the last year is going to hold below where we are now, then you relax and you just kind of keep an eye on things. And if you haven't added everything that you want, you buy into weakness, something we've talked about many, many times, and you keep a little bit back in case it tries to punch through that support. And if you believe that that's a short-term drop through that, then you do your buy stupid cheap prices.
I noticed the decliners on the equity markets today, so many of them are gold mining companies, not down a lot, but all down consistently just a little bit. Is this a good time to perhaps take a look at those stocks? Yeah,
and it's interesting to see how the companies decline in price in relationship to the gold price. Lately, what's been happening when gold has dropped, the companies have dropped less. In other words, they've kept their relative strength, and that seems to be the trend pretty much going on now. One of the things I was looking at today, because when you just concentrate on the daily or even the weekly prices, you can get a picture that may or may not be congruent with the longer term. And so I looked at silver, which looks pretty crummy on the daily. The weekly doesn't look too good either, but you keep going out and finally you go to the monthly, the yearly, the 5-year, and then what was really interesting when I got to the 25-year, could see, how this support between $26 that we've since the last 3 years of this decline in the cyclical fashion, down into the just above 18, how that's still holding. In fact, we're $1.50 below those lows right now. So it's still a sideways pattern. It's not predictable, but the longer it takes to chew down into that support and the less successful it becomes, the more likely it is that we've seen the cyclical lows, and you can have a very robust bounce out of that. And Jim, what was very interesting when I looked at the 25-year chart, and I looked what happened back in 2008, where silver had gone up to around $22. It had broken above the $10 mark in 2006, 2 years before, and virtually beyond doubled, a little bit more than double. But then when we had that collapse in 2008, it gave up all those gains and pushed down to $9. And so a chartist looking at the monthly or even the 2-year chart would say, oh, the bull market is over, and it's broken through all this support. It took 2 years to get there, and now it's given it all back plus more. But then what happened, if you're looking at the 25-year chart, 9 was essentially the low, and it proceeded from early 2009 up to 2011, about 2.5 years of going to $50. So it went up 500%, and that could not have been predicted by looking at a short-term chart, but it would have been given an indication if you looked at the longer chart when silver broke above the $22 high again. That was an indication that it was going to go a lot higher. So looking at the long-term chart can really smooth things out, and it can never predict for sure where things are going, but it gives an indication as to where they have been and what might happen again under similar circumstances.
David, have some people taken money perhaps which they would have invested in gold and silver with, and have they thrown it at palladium, which has grown phenomenally this year?
It's difficult to quantify that, but I'm sure some of that has been taking place, and I think to good effect. There are a couple of PGM ETFs which have done well, and they're holding up well. And also, there aren't very many mining stocks that you can play that in. Several exploration stocks which have long lead times for development. A couple of producers. We've talked about the primary North American producer, which has done well. But the thing is, if you look at today with gold and silver soft, platinum and palladium have given back gains too, but they're still holding that relative strength. And there are so many reasons to be bullish platinum and palladium that it seems to me that when they get an opportunity to pick up the company you like or an ETF and buy a little bit more of it, sure makes a lot of sense in my book.
A lot of average investors had no idea about palladium, and even though it's made some major gains, they're still surprised when I mention it to them that this is the hot metal out there because they found a way to use palladium instead of platinum for catalytic converters.
Well, there's certain types of engines that palladium works better in with than platinum, but they both are interchangeable to some extent. I've read something last week which I haven't seen further information on it, but it was pretty exciting to me, and there was talk about a type of catalytic converter which by using more platinum, up to 1 ounce or even more per engine, which is a lot of platinum, will take all of the carbon monoxide away so that there's virtually no toxic emissions from the operation of the engine and turn it into water droplets. And I'm sure they'll get that down below 1 ounce over time, but I mean, that's pretty darn interesting, and that would open up a kind of a new avenue for increased platinum usage if engines start being made like that. And looking at some of the toxic levels, I was reading also just yesterday that at certain times of the year that London actually has more pollution in the air than Beijing, which is one of the most polluted countries, on Earth. So all the big cities, to a greater or lesser extent, are facing the need to clean up their act, so to speak, clean up the air, because so many people are affected by it, causes many, many premature deaths. And I think the PGMs are going to be used as an important facet in doing that, almost regardless of where the price goes on that, because you do a cost-benefit analysis and you find, if platinum is up 50% and palladium doubles, the benefit of doing, whatever it takes in terms of their use to clean up the engines that are being used in these large cities is still worth it.
What's the price of platinum today?
We're still in that same broad range that we saw when you and I were talking about the breakout that occurred about 6 weeks ago. So still trading in a kind of a box formation.
Yeah, I'm not surprised they said the air pollution in London can be worse than Beijing. The last time I came back from London, I hate to be gross, folks, but I mean, I was still coughing up black chunks 2 weeks later. The sky was the same color as the Thames, and which is, of course, is a nice chocolate brown. The air quality there was not the best. And apparently, too, people are moving from Beijing to London because they think the air in London is better.
This is where platinum and palladium are going to come in to help save the day, it looks like. Good to be talking with you today on this, Jim, and we'll see where things lead. It's getting pretty interesting, I think.
Thanks a lot, David. My guest has been David Smith, Senior Analyst for the Morgan Report, which you can find online at silver-investor.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. You can find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet. Comments can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.